Right, good afternoon. I'm Councillor Julie Grace, Chair of Council. I'd like to welcome you all to the full Council meeting. Can you all please be seated? We all comfy? Right. We are not expecting a fire practice, but in the event of hearing the fire alarm, please leave the chamber and turn right. Proceed down the stairway and through the emergency exit on the ground floor. The assembly point is in the public square in front of CAS beyond the fountain. Anyone with mobility issues should wait in the refuge area near the lift and use the intercom to call for assistance. This meeting will be recorded and published on the Council's YouTube channel. By entering the Council chamber, you are accepting that you will be recorded and your images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If any members of the public or press are intending to record or film any part of today's meeting, please ensure this does not disturb proceedings. Can everyone ensure that the mobile phones are switched to silent mode, please? Members will note that following the dispatch of the agenda for this meeting, I've agreed to an additional urgent item of business, the appointment of a Vice Chair of Planning Committee, to be considered in this meeting. With your approval, I will suggest this is considered as the new agenda item number 9, immediately following the adoption of the Stainforth Neighbourhood Plan. Is that agreed? Right. First, item 1 is apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillors Debbie Hutchinson, Mark Holbrook and Austin White. I thought Debbie.
Chair,
that's
I'm here.
Yeah. I looked up and then I didn't see it second time. I thought, I'm sure I've seen you. Right, are there any other... My mic. Right, any other apologies? Right, lovely. Right, item 2, to consider if the public and press are to be excluded from the meeting. There are no exemptions on today's agenda. Items 3, declarations of interest. Before I ask for any declarations of interest, I'm understanding that the Monitoring Officer, Scott Focus, has some advice for members with regards to interest on today's agenda. Scott, would you like to speak, please?
Members will have noted that there is a motion on the Council agenda relating to national winter fuel payments. Although you or close relatives may stand to benefit if national policy changes, this does not constitute any form of interest because the City of Doncaster Council are not the decision makers on this national policy. Therefore, no declarations of interest are required on this basis, and you are all entitled to speak and vote on any motions relating to this subject. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Are there any other declarations of interest? Thank you. Item 4, are the minutes a true and accurate record? Oh, sorry, Jane. Where are you? Sorry.
I don't know whether this is totally relevant. It's just that I do work for a charity that actually supports people to apply for benefits.
Does Scott want to take that? Who's taking that?
I don't consider it rules you out of involvement in today's meeting. If you want to fill the format, then you're obviously freely available to do so, but it's tangential really to the meaning of the motion. So.
All right, then moving on to item 4. Are the minutes a true and accurate record? So this is the minutes of the council meeting held on 19th of September 2024. Thank you. Right, item 5, I have a couple of announcements to make. Sunday the 10th of November was Remembrance Sunday, and hundreds of people gathered at the cenotaph in Doncaster to pay tribute to and remember the servicemen and women who lost their lives in two world wars and later conflicts. The following day, we gathered at the Mansion House to observe the national 2-minute silence on Armistice Day. It is important that we take time out from our increasingly busy lives to remember those who fought and died for the freedom that we enjoy today. And I would like to thank all those who joined us at the Cenotaph, the Mansion House, and those involved in paying tribute at the many other services held across the borough. I would also like to announce that on Saturday, I attended the DN City of Lights event. It was a fantastic night with an incredible lineup of street performers, a wonderful fireworks display, and of course the Christmas lights switch on. It really kick-started the Christmas festivities, and I would like to thank everyone involved in putting the magical evening together. Thank you. Right, so I'm going to move on now. So Ros Jones, do you have any announcements to make?
I do, Chair, and if you can indulge me if I go over, please. My first announcement is an update on the airport. Earlier this month, I announced that a bidder to reopen and run our airport had been identified with the aim of having passenger flights taking off from spring 2026. Last week, it was agreed to draw down £3 million from South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority to enable us to finalise commercial negotiations and commence preparatory work on site to enable us to see planes return to Doncaster. I appreciate that councillors, alongside the residents and businesses of Doncaster, want to know who the successful bidder is, but at this time we must continue to have discussions with them on a strictly confidential basis until all the necessary legal stages are concluded, including the government's subsidy advice unit. Our proposition is not just an airport, but a hub for sustainable aviation-related industry. There is incredible potential to bring jobs and prosperity to Doncaster and the wider South Yorkshire region, with initial assessment of the full business case highlighting the significant opportunity which could deliver 5,000 direct jobs, a gross value added uplift of 6.6 billion and an incredible benefit cost ratio of 9:1. I will of course share who has been appointed when I can. I know our residents and businesses are keen to see the airport to reopen and would want this to happen yesterday, but please rest assured we are working as hard to get the airport open with the aim of passenger flights by spring 2026. Thank you. My next announcement, Chair, is in respect of the Household Support Fund. Colleagues, at the last meeting of full council in September, I updated council on the position of my cabinet in relation to the government's decision to means test the winter fuel payment and that we were expecting the next round of Household Support Fund. Government has allocated Doncaster nearly £3 million as part of our latest round of Household Support Fund. As a council, we have ensured there is support available to those pensioners who are just outside the threshold of pension credit and as such no longer eligible for winter fuel payment. Households in receipt of a qualifying benefit, such as housing benefit, council tax reduction, the housing element of universal credit, or means tested free school meals, will receive a single payment in December. This will mean over 25,000 vulnerable households in Doncaster on the lowest incomes will receive direct additional financial support of up to £225 towards the cost of household essentials. In addition, funding will be set aside to support Doncaster's food bank and hygiene bank. This will be managed by Public Health. As part of our regular winter support to residents, we will once again, by providing support through Your Life Doncaster and our winter booklet to inform residents, including pensioners, about the support available to them. We will once again have welcoming spaces which provides a safe, warm, supportive space to help residents through the winter months, relieving some of the pressure to heat their home. The spaces will be equipped with knowledge, support and advice to help throughout the winter months, including information on heating their home, managing money and food support. As I've stated previously, this council will continue to do all we can to support those on the lowest incomes, including pensioners this winter and beyond, whether this be through the Household Support Fund, local council tax reduction scheme, discretionary housing payments or our local assistance scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, do you have any announcements?
I have none, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Blackham, do you have any announcements to make today?
I do, Chair. It's an announcement about Christmas parking arrangements, and I will have this sent out to all elected members. This festive season, City of Doncaster Council will once again be supporting city centre businesses, residents and visitors by offering free city centre parking from Sunday the 1st of December 2024 to Sunday the 5th of January 2025 from 2 p.m. Monday to Saturday at the popular Markets Car Park and St George's Car Park. We are also offering every Saturday in December free all-day parking at Chapel Drive Car Park. All-day Sunday free parking at the Market, St George's and Chapel Drive car parks. I would encourage the people of Doncaster to make the most of this offer to support our high streets this festive season, whether that be retail, leisure, culture, hospitality or, of course, Doncaster markets. To buy local wherever possible, supporting local businesses who employ local people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Farmer, have you got any announcements?
No, thank you.
Councillor Sarah Smith, have you got any announcements?
Thank you, Chair. I do. Dear respected colleagues, today we come together to celebrate and recognise the backbone of our communities, our unpaid carers. Today is Carers' Rights Day, and on Carers' Rights Day, we not only acknowledge the vital role carers play, but also champion their rights, their well-being, and their voices. Unpaid carers in the UK contribute an estimated 180 billion to the economy each year. And anybody at any time of their life can become a carer, whether you're still at school, in training, or as you get older. Carers UK says at least 1 in every 5 adults in the UK are unpaid carers. I'm a carer to a family friend who has a significant brain injury. Many people in this room today are also unpaid carers. And it wasn't until I became a councillor that I learned that I had, as an unpaid carer, that I have rights. Across the country, millions of people selflessly dedicate their time, energy and love to caring for others, whether it's a parent, a partner, a child, a friend or a neighbour. They juggle responsibilities, overcome challenges and give their support to ensure that people they care for live with dignity and support. But being a carer should not mean sacrificing their own rights, our own rights, their own needs or their own futures. Today is about raising awareness of the rights that carers have, legal rights, rights that ensure that their contribution is recognised, their voices are heard, and their lives are supported. Carers have the right to be identified, to have their role acknowledged by healthcare professionals such as GPs, employers, and local authorities. This is not just about visibility, it's about ensuring carers are part of the conversation when decisions are made that affect them and the people that they care for. Carers have the right to an assessment of their own needs, so their well-being is protected. Carers often carry immense emotional and physical loads, and they need and deserve support, whether it's respite care, financial assistance, or emotional guidance. These rights are essential to sustaining their health and ability to care and have their own lives. Carers have the right to receive practical information and advice. Navigating complex systems of healthcare, benefits, and support can be overwhelming, and no one should have to face it alone. Access to clear, compassionate advice can be life-changing. Carers have the right to balance their caring responsibilities with employment and other aspects of life. Flexible working, protection from discrimination, and support in the workplace aren't luxuries. They're necessities for carers to live in fulfilling lives, and they are legal rights. And carers have the right to be part of the team of supporting the person that they're caring for who are being discharged from hospital. But rights only exist if we fight for them, uphold them, communicate them, and ensure they are accessible to all. So today, I call on every one of us, whether we are carers ourselves, professionals, employers, organisations, businesses, or policymakers, to take action, to ensure carers know their rights, to make sure those rights are respected and enforced, and to work towards a society where carers are valued not just for what they do, but for who they are. Of course, it's not Carers' Rights Day just for today, and so it's Carers' Rights every day, every single day. Let us honour carers not with words, but in actions, and together, let's keep working for a future that truly supports carers and the ones they care for. We're hosting an event tonight for carers and anybody down at the Waterfront Cafe at Doncaster College, 4 to 7. If anybody would like to join us and find out more about carers' rights and accessing support, and for anybody wanting support in Doncaster, we have the brilliant Doncaster Carers Wellbeing Service that can help offer support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Cole, do you have any announcements you wish to make?
Yes, Chair, if you don't mind, I'll just stand. Chair, I'd like to make a brief announcement in relation to the completion of renovations of our historic Corn Exchange, thanks to £5 million of government funding from the Levelling Up Fund. Actually, many thanks to all of those councillors of different parties who took the time and the opportunity to view the completed works last week. I'd like to echo the Mayor in expressing our thanks to Group Ginger for their creative design and architectural support, and to Jim Hopper and Stuart Cook from our professional buildings maintenance team for project managing the construction work on a really difficult project. And may I also pay tribute to the generosity of the individual who's in this room today but prefers not to be named, who supplied all of the cakes. So those of you who saw me eating more than my share, like a sugar-rushed infant, I can say it was not at taxpayers' expense. This renovation occurs 5 years after that other iconic building, the Wool Market, was reopened after renovation, and both buildings created modern interiors while enhancing their original features. The first official opening of the Corn Exchange was April 1873, 20 years after the Great Exhibition. Its domed glazed roof is a deliberate tribute to the glass roof of Crystal Palace and created no small number of technical challenges to our expert staff and contractors. In the intervening 151 years, this great building has been agricultural market hall, concert venue, dance hall. It has echoed to speeches by Winston Churchill and Aneurin Bevan and resonated to the sound of conductor Edward Elgar and the London Symphony Orchestra. It has even survived a major fire. I hope everyone agrees that our treasured Corn Exchange has been resurrected once more, returned to its former glory, completing this later stage of investment in our Doncaster markets. Our Corn Exchange is now more accessible, versatile and welcoming, set to thrive in a 21st century city centre, improving the visitor experience. In keeping with the history of this building, the interior has been reconfigured to be able to hold events for over 400 people. Over the next few months, the Corn Exchange will offer a variety of events to showcase its return. In the lead up to Christmas, people can come along and enjoy an artisan market, Christmas workshops, theatre shows, even a pantomime, providing added attractions to an extensive countdown to Christmas lineup. I look forward to this iconic building playing host to events and enterprises once more, and I encourage everyone to look at what events are coming up and come to see the transformation for yourselves. The Corn Exchange will fully reopen in the spring. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Ball, have you got any announcements to make?
None, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Ball, have you got any announcements to make?
No, Chair.
And Councillor Nightingale, have you got any announcements to make? I've got an announcement myself. I've got another announcement. I would like to congratulate Active Fusion and the Edlington Community Organisations who have recently received the King's Award for Voluntary Services. These are fantastic achievements highlighting the great work of our voluntary organisations who work tirelessly on behalf of our communities Are you well done to both of you, and a thank you. Right, moving on to item 6, questions from the public. As there are no questions from members of the public, we shall move on to the next item of business on the agenda, which is item 7, a statement of licensing policy. Councillor Joe Blackham, Cabinet Member for Highways, Infrastructure and Enforcement, will introduce and propose this item. Councillor Blackham.
Thank you, Chair. Under the Gambling Act 2005, licensing authorities are required to produce and publish a statement of licensing policy and to review the policy every 3 years. The policy sets out the steps which applicants need to take in order to be reasonably consistent with the 3 licence objectives, which are preventing gambling from being a source of crime or disorder, being associated with crime or disorder, or being used to support crime. Secondly, ensuring that gambling is conducted in a fair and open way. And thirdly, protecting children and other vulnerable persons from being harmed or exploited by gambling. It also sets the basis for all relevant licensing decisions over the next 3-year period, including how the licensing committee will conduct hearings for applications which cannot otherwise be resolved. This is the 7th version of the policy, and other than some administrative changes and minor additions identified through consultation, the policy remains largely unchanged from the current version. The decision to adopt the revised policy is taken by full council. Failing to review or adopt the policy has the potential to create a risk to the local authority who, as a result, may not be able to discharge its functions under the Gambling Act 2005. It is recommended that the Council approve the reviewed Statement of Licensing Policy, Gambling Act 2005, and resolve that the policy be adopted to take effect following the statutory advertisement period of 4 weeks, which will commence following this meeting. Thank you. I commend the policy.
Right, the report has been proposed by Councillor Blackham. Is that seconded? Thank you. Right, does any councillor wish to speak on this item? Right, the statement of licensing policy has been proposed and seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 8, adoption, making the Stainforth neighbourhood plan. I will ask Councillor Phil Cole, Cabinet Member for Finance, Trade and Services and Planning, to introduce this item. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chair. This afternoon I present to Council what will be the 10th neighbourhood plan created in Doncaster by local communities or parishes, the Stainforth neighbourhood plan. This is a culmination of 7 years' hard work and dedication on behalf of Stainforth Town Council and the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group, who've worked tirelessly to deliver a plan that reflects the wishes of the local community and helps to shape development in the local area. This process has included numerous consultations and attempts to engage the local community, including service meetings and calls for sites. The neighbourhood plan has also undergone 2 statutory consultation stages and an examination by an independent examiner, who took on board all comments made and concluded the plan could proceed to referendum, subject to modifications which were subsequently made to the plan. The neighbourhood plan was successful at its referendum, where 335 people voted yes, 56 voted no, to the question, do you want City of Doncaster Council to use neighbourhood plan for Stainforth to help to decide planning applications in the neighbourhood area? The turnout was 9%. As noted in the report, the neighbourhood plan allocates land adjacent to but not covered by the planning permission for the Unity development. This includes allocating land for housing, commercial employment and open space purposes in the form of a country park. The sites in question already benefit from a broader mixed-use allocation of these goals. Other policies in their neighbourhood plan include policies to support improving local housing choice, policies protecting and enhancing open spaces and community facilities, and a policy relating to improving the railway station gateway, which is also an ambition of the Stainforth Town Deal. The report notes that as the plan was successful at referendum in accordance with the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, you will be tested on this afterwards, by the way, the Council is required to make the neighbourhood plan if we are satisfied the basic conditions have been met. As this is the case, it is recommended that the Stainforth Neighbourhood Plan is adopted today at full council. Once adopted, the neighbourhood plan will form part of the council's statutory development plan alongside the local plan, joint waste plan and other neighbourhood plans, and will be used when determining planning applications in Stainforth. The Town Council and steering group have worked hard and commendably to get the neighbourhood plan to this stage and deliver a plan which seeks to reflect the will of the local community and effect positive change for Stainforth. I recommend this report to you. Thank you.
The report has been proposed by Councillor Cole. Is that seconded? Thank you. Any other members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Ransom.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Cole, for presenting the neighbourhood plan for Stainforth. For somebody who's been involved with the neighbourhood plan, I do sympathise with the people that have gone for 7 long years, because I was the same in Sprotborough. What I would say is very disappointing is your turnout in Stainforth, that you've got 9%. When you consider what improvements are going to be made to Stainforth and what huge things are going to be done there. So I would recommend the plan, but I would feel sorry for the people that have put all the time and effort in it. And I think as far as people of Stainforth are concerned, I think they could have come out and voted. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Right, do you want to exercise your right to reply, Councillor Cole?
Yes, I mean, thank you for those comments, Councillor Ransom. I do feel for all the different parishes and communities that put a lot of effort privately into creating plans, and then when it comes to the referendum, they don't have huge resources to promote public engagement and voting. And we know that despite all of the efforts we all put into persuading people to vote on issues that we think are terribly serious and important, it's actually quite hard to get people to participate, and most people won't even vote when there's a local election. Dealing with a referendum on a local matter is really difficult. So I commend all those people who did vote, and the parish, to its credit, and the neighbourhood plan steering group secured a substantial majority. And so I do note the comments Councillor Ransom made, but I just commend those people who did vote and made sure they had a decisive decision on this question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Right, adopting the Stainforth Neighbourhood Development Plan has been proposed and seconded. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 9, urgent item appointing the Vice Chair of Planning. A vacancy has arisen for the position of Vice Chair of the Planning Committee. This matter is being considered as an urgent item of business, as we need to ensure that this appointment is in place in time for the next Planning Committee meeting on the 10th of December to ensure that the committee can continue to effectively discharge its functions. Nominations for this position will require a proposer and a seconder. If there is more than one nomination, there will be a vote on it in alphabetical order, members being asked to vote once only for one candidate. Do we have any nominations for the position of Vice Chair of Planning? Yes, Chair. Councillor Jones?
Yes, Chair. This is a fairly simple matter to resolve. To replace the Vice Chair of Planning Committee with another member of the Planning Committee. After a fair and democratic process within the Labour Group, I therefore propose that Emma Muddiman-Rawlins takes up that position, Chair. Thank you.
Right, so that's seconded. Thank you. Councillor Alan Jones?
Thank you, Chair. I propose Steve Cox as being the Deputy Chair. over the years I've known him, is found to be competent within the planning process, and I therefore recommend him.
Okay. Is that seconded? Thank you. Right, so we'll move on to this one now. Right, are there any other nominations?
Nominations closed.
Right, we have two candidates proposed for the position of Vice Chair of Planning Committee. We will now vote for each candidate in alphabetical order of surname. Do not press the button until I have opened the vote, and please be aware that your vote will not count when the vote has been closed. Can I remind members that you are entitled to vote once only for one candidate by pressing the green button on your console. Firstly, so you're measuring it, yeah? So who will be? Carol Sampson, that's not me not knowing my alphabet. Right, firstly, all those in favour of Councillor Cox, I am now opening the vote. Please vote now by pressing the green button. Is it closed? Right. Right, I'm now closing the vote. You're doing that, aren't you? I don't have to do anything. Right, and secondly, all those... Where am I going? What have I done? Oh, do I have to read it out? Sorry. Right. 11 votes for Councillor Cox. And then do I do it again? Do I have to go again for Emma? All right, sorry. Now, all those in favour of Councillor Emma Muddyman-Rawlings, I am now opening the vote. Please vote now by pressing the green button. Right, I am now closing the vote. Am I reading? All right, they are... Right. 38 votes have been cast for Emma Muddyman-Rawlings. Having received the majority of votes, I declare Councillor Emma Muddyman-Rawlings as the Vice Chair of Planning. Thank you. Item 10, motion proposed by Councillor Thomas Noon and seconded by Councillor Nick Allen. Can I ask Councillor Noon to introduce this item? Councillor Noon?
Thank you, Chair. So, the winter fuel allowance was introduced by a Labour government, Tony Blair, in 1997 to protect our vulnerable older generation. Many governments have come and gone since then, and the allowance has always stayed. The age of the population of our country is increasing, and more people require help. This falls on all of us to accept this. If it means increased taxes or cuts elsewhere, this has to be the way forward. Not take from the old who has given so much. According to the Department of Work and Pensions, around 10 million OAPs will miss out on this allowance. Those who are no longer eligible, the 1 million who will miss out because they won't claim the help. This could be due to pride, lack of help to claim what they're entitled to. I've had numerous emails from residents in my ward around winter fuel allowance, just like every councillor in this room, I imagine. When I wrote this preamble, I signed the Age UK petition, and it states, cutting the winter fuel payment this winter with virtually no notice or compensatory measures to protect poor and vulnerable pensioners is a wrong policy decision. Millions of struggling pensioners won't receive up to the $300 they rely on to pay their bills. We believe as many as 2.5 million pensioners who find paying their bills a real stretch will become seriously hit by this cut. Those on low incomes who miss out on pension credit, those with high energy needs because of disability or illness, the 1 million who don't receive the pension credit they're eligible. This government should halt their proposed change to the winter fuel payment and think again. This has been signed by nearly 600,000 people. My very own MP, Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, and the net zero aims will only see an increase in electricity costs. We currently pay one of the highest in Europe. 2019 Labour Manifesto. We will keep the winter fuel allowance. Yes, it's a different government under a new leader, but is this current government that far away from one of only 5 years ago? Cut the party politics and vote on behalf of our older folk, who will have a difficult decision this winter. I really hope it warms up and the cold weather we've experienced this week doesn't hang around all winter. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Noon. Councillor Nick Allen, you're seconding this motion. Would you wish to speak? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for inviting me to second the motion. I seconded this mainly because actually my ward, Bessica, has a significant number of people in it who are affected by this change. And as Tom pointed out, this is a benefit which was effectively introduced by Tony Blair's first Labour government, I think. So for them to renege on it at this point is something I was a little bit perplexed by, and I know many electors, and I know many people have contacted all members about it across the borough, but particularly in my ward, where you think we have a significant minority of people, our pensioners, who rely on this payment, but also live on their own. So I was pleased to be able to offer some words in support of this motion. I'm sure all members are aware of the recent estimates this week about 100,000 people could possibly now face fuel poverty this winter because of this change. And while I sort of agree that rhetoric and sort of spiteful rhetoric is never very fair, I do note with some sort of irony that over the last 14 years, in the way that you have often relied on rhetorical tropes about austerity, we've had to put up with that as if it was somehow a deliberate move on our part, when often we didn't actually have a choice, or when we did have a choice, it was Hobson's choice. Now, almost immediately upon being elected, you've had to pursue some of those very similar policies. So I'd like to know what changed in your economic thinking, because nothing about what you pronounced in the manifesto or what you campaigned on as a party, at no point did the Labour Party say they would be doing things like this. It's normally something you would expect, actually, unfortunately, to come from a Tory government or to be justified along more neo-capitalist means. So for it to come along out of your party almost immediately is highly unusual. So I'd ask yourselves this in the room: is this what you're expecting from a Labour government? I'm sure there are plenty of councillors, thoughtful socialists among you, who must think, well, this is absurd. How on earth can we defend this when we've just spent the last 14 years slamming the Tories at every available opportunity, and yet you've done, frankly, something which would make Mrs Thatcher blush, to be quite frank. So ask yourselves that when you're thinking of your amendments. I would also point out, though, in the spirit of conciliation, I do know that this council did pursue very good policies last year regarding the warm rooms, and that's listed in, I think it's item 7, heating hubs here. And I'll also point out that there's other sort of initiatives coming out of local government to sort of combat this policy's worst effects. If you want to go out and find out about what Torbay Council are planning to do, that's very, very interesting. I think they're looking at a way of replacing the payment in full for the most affected or the most vulnerable people who are sort of on a knife edge with the benefits and that sort of thing. Other than that, I mean, I think, there's no absolute reason why we can't all come together and support this motion, even if it is, unfortunately, very difficult economics and very difficult partisan politics, given the obvious hypocrisy of a Labour government doing something like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Right. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Councillor Cole? Right, Councillor, who's first? Councillor Bluff. Councillor Bluff. Oh, is it Councillor Glenbluff? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I'd just like to echo what Councillor Noon and Councillor Owen have been saying. Councillor Ransom and I have many pensioners within our area, within the villages, and it's of great concern of us for this to be removed from them. I have got permission from one of our residents to just read out an extract of his email, which is that as a retired miner, he swapped his coal fuel allowance for gas. And now he does feel betrayed by this government. He thought he would have a good winter, and he now feels like his Christmas has been ruined. So I do support this motion. Thank you.
Is there anybody else wishes to speak on this item? To speak on this item, Councillor Cole, because you did indicate, but it's not on here.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Right, okay, thank
in
you.
fact, on behalf of the Labour Group, we would like to propose a substantial amendment to the motion, agreeing with some parts of it, but making some substantial changes. I've submitted a copy to the Secretariat. If it's possible for it to be distributed, and then I presume you'll want to have a short break before I speak to it.
Right, how long? Oh, 10 minutes.
Councillor Cole, you may wish to introduce your or propose your amendment and have it seconded before any other steps are taken. So if you wish to hand it out, perhaps speak to it, have it seconded, and then perhaps the other group might decide what they want to do before that. But it should really be proposed and seconded before we take it as being on the table, if that's okay.
Happy to do that, Chair. Shall I just give it a minute for them to...
Has everybody got a copy? Is there anybody without a copy? Emma, is your hand up? Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Cole, do you wish to introduce this amendment? Is it
Yes,
an amendment?
thank you, Chair.
Right, okay, thank you.
I'd like to...
Can we have some hush first, please? Thank you.
I'd like to propose the amendment to the motion, which has now been circulated, to reinforce the already stated position of Mayor Ros Jones and this Cabinet, but also to highlight the existing work this Council does to support our most vulnerable residents, including pensioners. Mayor Ros wrote to the Chancellor back in September on behalf of this Cabinet, expressing our concerns with the government decision to means test the winter fuel payment. I hope we can all acknowledge that there are pensioners with high incomes who do not need the winter fuel payment, and as such, the universal allowance has never been a well-targeted payment. Indeed, Councillor Bluff quoted Age UK. They said, "We are particularly worried about those on low incomes who miss out on pension credit, those who have unavoidably high energy needs because of disability or illness, and the 1 million people who should receive pension credit but and are eligible for it. So, indeed, in a letter to the Minister for Energy Consumers, Miata Fambula, the government's own Committee on Fuel Poverty said, "We recognise that the government is facing some very hard financial choices. We were disappointed to find that the money withdrawn from winter fuel payments was not being redirected to help those most in need of support." So for us, the issue is not about all pensioners, it's about supporting those with modest incomes. Councillors will know that the new government is committed to the triple lock, increasing pensions by £900 this year and a further £470 next year, roughly £200 above inflation. And I hope we all appreciate the woeful financial mess the Chancellor inherited. The contingency budget had already been spent 3 months into the financial year, and a huge financial black hole existed. Despite the mismanagement of the previous Conservative government, rightly removed from office by the British people, we must do all we can to support our pensioners and other vulnerable residents in our communities who fall just outside the current threshold for state support. We are concerned about those pensioners who are not well off, who just miss out on pension credit and therefore will no longer receive the winter fuel payment. We requested the decision to means test winter fuel payment be revisited and that a review of the eligibility criteria for the winter fuel payment take place in consultation with pensioners, representative groups, and that due consideration should be given to protecting those pensioners on low and middle incomes who may struggle with the cost of energy this winter. We suggested to either increase the threshold for receiving pension credit or to raise the threshold at which the winter fuel payment is paid, or to offer some support of tapered support to pensioners who just miss out on that pension credit threshold. As a council, we will always stand up and support those residents who are in need, including pensioners, whether this be through Your Life Doncaster webpage, whether it's our annual winter booklet, our welcoming spaces available in many communities, and even through the Council's Thermal and Energy Efficiency Works programme, which provides free and subsidised energy efficiency improvements such as insulation for residents in need, including pensioners, to help with reduce long-term heating costs. This Council and the Department for Work and Pensions directly wrote to around 1,000 pensioners who may qualify for pension credit to encourage them to check if they're eligible and direct them to support to complete an application. And as Mayor Ros has already announced, we've allocated nearly £3 million as part of the latest round of Household Support Fund that will provide funding to those residents who are most vulnerable, including pensioners and families. We're also supporting those pensioners who just miss out on the pension credit criteria and as such are not eligible for the winter fuel payment. This year, so far in 2024, over 25,000 households have received payments from the City of Doncaster Council, and this winter we expect to reach a similar number again. Knowing the mess they had created, the outgoing Conservative government had planned for this fund to end in September 2024. This Labour government has continued that funding. Let's be clear about Labour's record supporting pensioners. Gordon Brown first introduced the winter fuel payment just 6 months after the Labour government was elected in 1997. Payments started at £20 in the first year, but increased tenfold over the next decade. When the Conservatives came to office in 2010, they froze that payment for the next 12 years, not one increase. When Labour came to power in 1997, 32% of pensioners...
Are you ready to
I will
close,
wrap up
please?
in 2 seconds, Mayor. When Labour came to power in 1997, 32% of pensioners lived in poverty. When they left office, the figure was 13%. If only that progress in reducing pensioner poverty had been matched by the Conservative government over the next 14 years. So I do hope the opposition will support these amendments to deliver a cross-party motion. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. Is anybody seconding this motion? Mayor Jones?
And
Are you wishing to speak?
The proposed amendments to the motion reinforces the position of myself and my Cabinet as I announced at the previous full council meeting in September. City of Doncaster Council will continue to do all we can to support those on lowest incomes and those who are in need, including pensioners, this winter and beyond, whether this be through the Household Support Fund, Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme, discretionary housing payments or our local assistance scheme. We will continue to work with our partners to support residents, access benefits they are entitled to and provide help and advice to all who need it. We are a caring council that delivers good value for money services to the people of Doncaster. We have the lowest council tax in South Yorkshire and one of the lowest in the country, despite years of Conservative austerity. I fully support the proposed amendments to the motion and I believe it presents us with an opportunity for cross-party unity on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Right. An amendment to the motion has been proposed and seconded. Does any member wish to speak any further on the amendment? Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to put into perspective some of the issues in terms of wider society and the changes since 2010, because we know that this is an issue that obviously is affecting pensioners, but time and time again, I've come to this council chamber and I've raised the issue in terms of poverty in general within our communities, particularly our most deprived communities. Recent figures from the Trussell Trust, so these are not my figures, they're not made up on the back of a fag packet, they're from Trussell Trust, states that there were 35 food banks in 2010. We've now got 1,500. That's Trussell Trust figures. That's Trussell Trust figures. And then if you look at it in terms of obviously sort of like, you know, homelessness, there's been a massive increase in terms of sort of like people on the streets. So again, if you look at homelessness figures, they're saying that effectively that's increased by about 1,500%. That's shelter. They're their figures. And I pulled that today. So we understand that there's a legacy there over the last 14 years. And I'm aware of the nuances in terms of us being local councillors as well. I get that totally. But we've got to understand that national parties make decisions. And we're part of those parties as well. And what I will say to you is that when you look at some of the punitive things that's happened over the last 14 years, like the bedroom tax, cuts to PIP, you look at some of the issues around obviously sort of like the 15 billion that were wasted in terms of contracts going to mates over COVID. All this is wasted money that Labour's come to power and had to deal with in terms of that financial shock. Because we're looking at 22 billion, aren't we, if not more. So our decisions have had to be made. So whilst I've got some sympathy, and I certainly do have sympathy, obviously in terms of the winter fuel payment, what Mayor Ross has done is put in actions locally to offset that. And we've made our position perfectly clear. Again, moving around Doncaster, we can see that some of the things that were suggested in the original the original motion in terms of the warm spaces, getting CEB involved, giving advice and things like that, they're already in place. Because we've been doing those for a number of years. We've been doing those certainly since cost of living crisis. So, like Councillor Cole, I do have some sympathy with the elements of it, but I also understand that on a local position, effectively this is where we're at. So, the offsetting measures that are put in place by Mayor Ross and some of the work that we're doing with some other agencies, particularly around Doncaster, effectively will help enormously. Thank you, Chair.
All right. I have got a list of people waiting to speak, but were you wanting to come in, Councillor Cox, Steve Cox? Right, okay. If you want to come to because it's not on here.
I just want to propose an adjournment so we can go and have a natter.
Is that a seconded? So it's all agreed? An adjournment? Okay. 10-minute recess? Is that... 10 minutes. How long? 10 minutes.
Everyone will leave.
Right, we're going to have a 10-minute recess and everybody will leave with the exception of the Labour group. Is that 3:05? And we'll return to the chamber to start business at 3:05. Thank you. Seated. Can you get seated as quickly as possible, please? What's that mean? Right, the second session is now open. Can we start recording, please? Right, the list of people that wanted to speak has disappeared, so is there anybody wanting to speak on the item of the amendment? I've got Councillor Jane Kidd. Would you like to speak?
I just wanted to speak about the application for benefits side of things. People now seem to be saying how difficult it is for people to apply for pension credit. That's probably true. I'd just like to say that all benefits are underclaimed and wrongly denied to people who then go through tortuous processes to get what's rightfully theirs. Austerity, I believe, was a political choice, and one of the results of austerity was cuts to the council's itself budget, and we ourselves used to have a department that supported people with welfare benefits, which went. So that is why we're now relying on charities. So I just think it's beyond ironic that we're in this situation now saying, oh my goodness, people can't get the benefits they deserve. That's the result of austerity, that.
Councillor Church, you wishing to speak?
Please. One of the things that Nick missed out with the budget is the fact that the investment reserve, the MPS, is going back into the MPS, and that will benefit thousands of beneficiaries, especially in this area. So hopefully Glenn's resident who's transferred his concessionary fuel to gas, hopefully he will benefit by an average of £30 a week from the changes to MPS. That is something the Labour government has done, and that is an injustice that has carried on for too long.
Is anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Is mine? Okay. Chair, we had an adjournment, so the discussions took place about the amendment. We've moved away from that, and that's not the protocol of dealing with an amendment. Could I ask that we move back to how we deal with an amendment after an adjournment of time to see what is coming back in accordance with rule, please?
Councillor Pearson, we're still dealing with the amendment. We're asking people to, if they wish to speak on the amendment, and many members are doing so. If members wish to speak to both the substantive point and the amendment, to some extent that's a matter for them, because we don't know what they're going to say until they do speak. We're at the in a moment or two, if people no longer wish to speak on the amendment, we will ask Councillor Noon, as the mover of the original motion, if he wishes his right of reply, and then move to a vote on the amendment. And then we can move forward at pace thereafter. I hope that answers your question.
Is it on now? That was not explained at the opening of the second part, and I don't think it fits quite with either Citrine or how amendments are laid down under legislation. But I appreciate what you're saying. But I do think that at the opening of the meeting, that should have been explained, that we were still just talking about the amendment, not the substantive, or the fact there might be a second amendment or third.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak on the amendment? Right, Councillor Noon, would you like a right to reply?
Chair. Thank you for the amendments. Been in, discussed them. Had questions, talk on the amendments. What assurances can we get about the waiting lists that currently exist? Will they be in place before the winter carries on? And those who slip through the net, what are we doing as a council to capture these people? Because we all know that people do slip through the net. Does the Labour group support the removal of the winter fuel allowance to the 10 million people who are going to miss out on the winter fuel allowance? and the household support fund used to go to vulnerable groups. Can the Mayor give us assurances that this won't be taken from one vulnerable group to be given to another vulnerable group from a national decision that's been implemented by government? And then if we're not, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Right, we shall now move to vote on the amendment to the motion. Can I remind members not to press your button until I've opened the vote, and please be aware that your vote will not count when the vote is closed. Right. Please either press the green button to vote yes to the amendment, or the red button to vote no, or the white button to abstain. I am now opening the vote. Please vote now on the amendment to the motion. I am now closing the vote. The amendment to the motion is declared carried by 48 votes, 2 abstains and no against. This now becomes substantive motion for further consideration. Does any member wish to speak further on this motion? Nothing.
Yes, Councillor Cox.
Councillor Cox.
Not with my voting button. For some reason, it's come on when I voted.
Councillor Richard Allen-Jones.
Thank you, Chair. One of the issues that Councillor Nunes highlighted is the household support fund. And what we tried to explain in real terms is that that was for vulnerable people, not for fuel issues. I can accept to some extent, but we're concerned that we want to make sure that the support for pensioners on the fuel is highlighted more so than spending all the money on supporting those who've got issues that are not related to fuel. Sorry? It's what?
Is anybody else wishing to speak on the motion? There is.
Oh, yeah,
Councillor Dave Shaw.
Thank you. It's quite heartwarming to see the opposition suddenly grow some level of empathy after 14 years of running the country into the ground. We've had a Labour government for a matter of months, and it seems that you've suddenly all grown hearts. Well, it's lovely and really nice to see, but a little bit disingenuous.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this?
Yes, Councillor Laura Bluff.
Councillor Laura Bluff.
While I understand that everyone is going to have their own opinions, I think we're all forgetting something that Doncaster Council has already agreed to, and that's the kindness pledge. And instead of throwing barbed comments at each other, we should all take that back into account. Thank you.
Councillor Nick Allen.
Thank you. I was going to make similar comments to Councillor Bluff, but I'll just point out that it did take the Tories at least 10 years to disappoint people completely. It's taken you lot 10 weeks, so well done.
I can ask. Oh, wishes to speak. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chair. I think the councillors suggest that we've got an ungenerous spirit. I think it was pointed out by one of my colleagues that every retired miner, and many of us here represent former mining communities, every retired miner will be better off by £30 or more per week as a result of the decision to transfer the surplus of the miners' pensions fund to retired miners. That has dramatically improved the standard of living of people at this time of year in mining with who are part of that pension scheme. Also, a colleague referred to the decision to restrict winter fuel payments as being something that might make Mrs. Thatcher blush. No disrespect, but history would suggest that someone who's willing to force the closure of most coal mines, even at the expense of a year-long strike, and cause immense poverty and hardship, triple the level of unemployment from the day she took office, and then try to impose a poll tax on the nation because she felt some people were not paying their way. I'm not sure many things would make that Prime Minister blush, certainly not a minor measure like this. And I remind colleagues again that when they came into office, this government offered not one increase in the winter fuel payments for 12 years, not one increase. They knew that poverty was increasing throughout their time, particularly family poverty was increasing during their term in office, and yet they did precious little to deal with it. Indeed, they cut benefits rather than improve them in real terms. So, colleagues, I'm not sure we should, in the interests of cross-party agreement, I'm delighted that the Conservatives voted overwhelmingly for this amended motion, and I hope they'll continue in that spirit.
As there are no further requests to speak, I will offer Councillor Noon his right of reply before we vote on the substantive motion.
Just a little bit, just to say in the preamble about not being party political. I think this discussion has turned very party political with accusations and stuff thrown across the room. I think we're elected to be vote on behalf of the people, and I think we've all had emails from residents. So I think we should grow up a bit, to be honest, and drop the party politics. Thank you.
Thank you. We shall now move to a vote on the substantive motion. Can I remind members not to press your buttons until I've opened the vote, and please be aware that your vote will not count when the vote has been closed. So press either the green button to vote yes, the red button to vote no, or the white button to abstain. I'm now opening the vote. Please vote now on the motion. I am now closing the vote. The motion has been carried by 48 votes, 2 abstentions and 1. Oh, yes, sorry, 1 abstention and 0 no votes. Thank you. Back where am I now? Moving on to item 11, questions by I get too close, sorry. Questions by elected members. We have 5 questions on notice today from Councillor Nick Allen, Jane Cox, Steve Cox, Glenn Bluff and Cynthia Ransom. The first question from Councillor Allen is as follows. Prior to Doncaster and Sheffield Airport opening in 2005, TUI signed an agreement to operate from the airport prior to the opening. Will the Mayor confirm how many airlines have entered into contractual agreements to recommend services in the future, and how many airlines have agreed ahead of terms? Mayor Jones, would you like to reply?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Allen. To respond to this matter would start to outline the commercial arrangements in place to support the reopening of the airport. As such, this question is deemed commercially confidential, and therefore I cannot provide you with a response.
Councillor Allen, you may now ask a supplementary question. If you wish, can I remind the councillors asking questions on notice without any supplementary, that any supplementary question must arise directly out of the original question or reply. Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. As you know, Ros, questions submitted on notice go through a process with the question planning, and they have to be accepted. And had these issues been brought to my attention then, you could have rejected the question, I could have rephrased it, you could have given a more substantive response. Because right now this simply appears to be quite dismissive. You didn't have to give me absolute specific details and names. You could have outlined just a more generalised sort of, scheme of events that's been happening. You could have at least attended to it that way. Had you brought that to my attention when I put the question in, I'm sure I could have put in a more or very different question and had a more reasonable and substantive response.
Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
I see the questions coming, and it's up to someone else, i.e. the monitoring officer, to look and say whether they are a reasonable question or not. I've given you the answer. It's about commercial sensitivity, so therefore I can't provide a further response. But thank you for your question.
I will now move to the second question from Councillor Jane Cox. The question is as follows. Minutes from the MCA board meeting of the 12th of January 2022, 6 months before Peel's closure announcement, state that to be eligible for their requested funding and progress towards approval, a net zero target of 2040 should be brought forward to 2030, and that net zero target should include airline emissions. Page 26 of the MCA papers for the 12th of November 2024 state there are no such mandated requirement. Can you confirm that the bidding process of the new airport operator included the submission of a comprehensive net zero strategy, and the MCA has not approved funding without this document being reviewed in advance, as was the stipulation levied upon Peel? Mayor Jones, would you like to reply?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Cox. It isn't for the City of Doncaster Council to comment on historical matters considered by other bodies. However, what we can say is that bidders submitted business cases that support our ambition to create a hub for sustainable aviation-related industries. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Cox, you may ask a supplementary question if you wish.
Thank you, Ross. Can I just say it's thoroughly disappointing that you're not answering any of these questions. I've been pulled up on social media by your Labour councillors for not asking these questions, even though we said at the beginning we would stay in the back. Now, Doncaster Council, Doncaster Sheffield Airport is in Doncaster Council's remit. If we don't, as a council, understand what was put forward to South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority back in 2022, then we're doing our residents a disservice.
Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
Again, you're given information updated as information can be put out there. Papers was put there when it was going out for people to come in, sensitivity to read. I believe some people did come in and look at what was being put out there, but this is the answer. At this moment in time, we can say that it isn't for us to comment on historical matters considered by other bodies. Thank you for your question.
I will now move on to a third question from Councillor Steve Cox. Will the Mayor specify the exact nature of the account she has been publicly claimed Peel refused to provide the SYMCA and the City of Doncaster Council in respect of 20 million loan, and if why the requirement differed from the other loans already granted at the time? Mayor Jones, would you like to reply?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Cox. Your question is more appropriately directed to South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority.
Councillor Cox, would you wish to make a supplementary question, please?
Thank you, Chair. And again, Ross, it's a question that's not been answered, and I'll echo what Jane said. We have been asked to keep out of it politically. And as in a conversation we had and regarding Labour members and not doing anything, we've done what you asked us to do. It's time now that we didn't do what you asked us to do. Now, yeah, but the question I am asking is of you, not of Oliver, it's of you, Ross. It would appear in your answer that Oliver speaks on your behalf constantly because you can't comment about things that go on historically in other authorities. So why can't you speak up for Doncaster?
Mayor Jones, do you wish to respond?
I continually represent and stick up for Doncaster, and you will be aware that as co-chair of the Business Recovery and Growth Board, we signed off the proposal investment subject to due diligence and financial checks. Thank you for your question.
The fourth question is from Councillor Glenbluff, is as follows. Can the Mayor confirm that she agrees Peel's audited financial accounts, KPMG and Deloitte, as published on the Government's Companies House website, accurately reflects her understanding of the operational losses sustained by Peel, exceeding 90 million during her term in office since 2013 and more than 200 million since 2005? And if so, can she explain which aspects of costs and revenue could feasibly turn an average operating loss of 11 million into an operating profit within just 5 years, as she has stated? Mayor Ross-Jones, do you want to respond?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bluff. It is not appropriate for me to comment on the published accounts of another entity. That is a matter of record for that entity. We have previously reported on the financial viability assessment that was undertaken by our independent aviation advisors, who considered base, pessimistic and optimistic operations scenarios, which were reported to Cabinet on the 6th of December 23. Thank you for your question.
I will now read the fifth question from Councillor Cynthia Ransom. During the time circa 2013 to 2015, when the Mayor negotiated Doncaster's share of devolved funds with Simca, what provision did she negotiate in respect of the financial support Doncaster Sheffield Airport at the time when its cumulative losses had already exceeded 100 million would require in order to stay open and achieve its projected growth of jobs and gross value added? Mayor Ross-Jones, would you like to reply?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Ransom. The South Yorkshire devolution deal was signed in July 2020, and in March 2022, the decision was taken for gain share funding to support a place plan for each of the 4 constituent local authorities. Our airport and gateways have always been one of my key priorities for investment and job creation within Doncaster Place Plan and previous economic blueprint for Gateway East.
Councillor Ransom, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
A comment, please, Chair. Mayor Jones, that wasn't what I asked, and unfortunately you refused to answer councillors' concerns. You refuse to confirm if an airline has been committed and dodge the difficult questions. So, sorry, it's not been very helpful.
Mayor Jones, would you like to reply?
This council has strongly supported DSA since it opened in 2005. We have seen significant public sector investment into the surrounding infrastructure over the years to support the airport and expansion, with over 78 million of public sector funding via grants and loans. As I've said previously, getting the airport reopened is my #1 priority. And therefore, I believe that you are now saying, should we be opening this or not? So my question back to you is, do you really support us getting the airport open? Because I believe that we are actually carrying out the requirements of what our public, our businesses are saying, but we'll do it in a proper financial manner.
We shall now move on to item 2. Questions without notice. Please use your button on your console to indicate if you wish to speak. I haven't asked a question yet.
Sorry, I'm too excited.
Are there any questions to Mayor Ros Jones? Councillor Noon.
Thank you. We were led to believe on the day the lease was signed for the airport would be the day that we subletted the airport to the provider as to not foot costings. This has not happened. Was this because we rushed through the Peel lease agreement for the Simcoe elections vote grab?
Do you wish to respond?
We have followed proper protocol and we will continue to follow that to ensure we get the best deal. And if you note what I said at the beginning, we get the airport over the line. It will create, once it's fully opened, 5,000 jobs plus a GVA second to none, coupled with a 9-to-1 return on investment. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Noon, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
The money returned will be amazing, but so why early on in the process are we getting told one thing, and then something totally different happening? So you're going to expect these questions because what we're told a year ago, or when we were going down the lines of the CPO and stuff like that, was what was put forward. We got told we wouldn't foot costings because there'd be some costings to foot. But since we've signed the lease agreement, we've had that in place for the last 8 months with no provider in place. That's not what we were told originally 16 months ago.
Mayor Jones, do you wish to respond?
Full council have been kept up to date as we get the information that can be put out there to the public. And therefore, as you are negotiating, things evolve over time. But thank you for your question.
Councillor Nick Allen.
Thank you. Earlier today, I went to see the Van Dyck portrait of Charles I at the museum, which I'm sure all members are aware was recently placed there, and you can go and view it. And it's a very interesting historical connection for us with the Civil War. And that brought to my mind a memory I have of the earlier questions in this chamber about the memorial for Thomas Rainsborough, who obviously wasn't a royalist but a cavalier, and on the other side in the Civil War, where he was executed near what's now Primark, or at least that's the sort of given. It could be anywhere in the vicinity of that. But he was executed there. My previous war colleague, Councillor Neil Gethin, he asked about placing a plaque there on commemorating that and remembering that in some way. And as far as I'm aware, there's been no steps towards doing that from this council or any of our heritage. So do you think that's something you could support? Because it is quite a significant thing, really, that he you know, in terms of events in the Civil War, it was a significant event. It took place here. But I was intrigued by that connection, and it was triggered by my memory just looking at the Van Dyck portrait, which I think you should all go and have a look at, by the way.
Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
The Van Dyck painting was actually donated by a very kind beneficiary in memory of her husband, who was a staunch Labour supporter and wanted to ensure that Labour realised what was happening, and we're delighted to accept it. And at the same time, of course, a portrait was unveiled on the same day for Ben Parkinson, actually funded from the people who support DGLAM. As far as this is concerned, I was not aware that anything was not progressing. So if you put it in writing, please, I'll ensure you get a response. Thank you.
Do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Other than to thank you. I'll just point out it's not actually his hand. It's speculated that it's their studio. It is worth pointing that part out. It's not a Van Dyke. It's not attributed just to him. It's a bit like when you get all sorts of art in that way. I think it is worth pointing that out. But thank you anyway.
Do you wish to respond?
Van Dyke area, and they believe some of it was painted, according to the lady who kindly donated it.
Councillor Jane Cox.
Mayor, I'm not sure you remember, but in January full council I spoke about our experience going out in Doncaster Centre, supporting a neighbour's gin bar, drug dealing, begging, shouting, swearing, not conducive to an evening out. Fast forward to September full council, you stated you felt safe walking through town late at night, as long as it was well lit. 2 days after that meeting, we once again went to town to support a local business, DN1, which is amazing. It was 4:30 in the afternoon, still broad daylight when we left. There were 6 men in balaclavas on 3 motorbikes in the market car park, clearly up to no good. I went over and stopped the robbery that was in progress. One of them came at me with a weapon. My sister-in-law, realising what was happening, let out a scream to alert people around us. With this, he jumped on the back of one of the bikes and they all sped off. The man did not have any gloves on and another gentleman recovered the weapon. Eventually, 6 police appeared. Not one of them asked if we were okay. They stood around for some time, looking at us. I said I would leave as it seemed pointless being there. An officer said, "Shall I take your details? But if you make a statement, you might have to go to court, you know." Right, okay. The council told the police the CCTV was facing the wool market, so there was no evidence. The camera is fixed, facing the car park. It took 5 weeks for me to get the police to agree to this crime, which they have now done. 8 weeks on, I have still not given a statement. I am assured crime is low in the centre. Of course it is if it's not recorded. Please, Mayor Jones, do not tell me you're investing money. Leadership comes from the top, and until you acknowledge there is a problem, nothing will change. It feels delusional to say we don't have a problem, because we clearly do. It feels more unsafe at the moment, more beggars and more drug dealing than ever before.
Do you wish to reply, Jones?
I believe the question that you asked me at the time was, did I feel safe? And my answer is still the same. Yes, I do walk through Doncaster, and at different times. I was walking through last Saturday evening. I've raised the issue with the police, but I do accept that we need to stop this, and it's working in conjunction with the police that something needs to happen. Indeed, I've made £1 million available for further CCTV and looking to get the police to work with us. I cannot account for how long it takes the police to come back, but I will raise it again at my next meeting. Thank you for your question.
Do you wish to raise a supplementary question?
We can invest £1 million in CCTV, but until the police have the confidence that the council will supply them with the footage, the council have the confidence that they can give the police the footage, and we all work together to sort it out with businesses and with everybody in this room, it is not going to change. And honestly, it's getting to the point where it's ridiculous. It absolutely is.
Mayor Jones, do you wish
Can
to
I
respond?
suggest you go and see how the police are working along with our staff with the CCTV that's there? The £1 million was put there to actually bring about improvements in the town centre. But thank you for your question.
Councillor Ransom.
Mayor Jones, quite fitting really, police. For 3 years, I sat on the Police and Crime Commissioners Board, 2 or 3 hours meetings long, plus extra finance meetings. We had accountants, auditors and independent auditors. I was horrified to hear by the BBC that there was a 65 million shortfall, black hole, in funds. I have tried many times to get answers until I finally spoke to a senior member in Mayor Coppard's office, who said Mayor Coppard was doing an in-depth review and would report to all leaders. My question to you is, may I ask, have you had this brief? What is the cost to the taxpayer? And what is the point of councillors sitting on boards if we are not given the correct information?
Mayor Jones, do you wish to respond?
We have had a brief about the 65 million black hole. However, we've not been given the details of what is being done to resurrect that. It appears it was the minimum revenue provision that was provided for over such a long period of time. That is part of the Police and Crime Commissioner's remit that falls under Mayor Coppard, and therefore I would direct your questions back to him. But I will raise it again. We have been made aware of the black hole, and we are waiting for something to come forward and tell us how they're going to meet that. But thank you for your question.
Do you wish to ask a supplementary question, Councillor Ransom?
Sorry, Mayor Jones. The second question was, what is the cost of the to the taxpayer of these reviews? And what is the point of councillors sitting on boards if we're not given correct information? And how can it give the taxpayer confidence that their high police tax is being well used?
Do you wish to respond?
Again, these are Police and Crime Commissioner questions. They will have the funding, but I will get someone to write to South Yorkshire and respond directly to yourself with what the cost to the taxpayer is and what the outcomes will be once they get the answer back from them. But thank you for your question.
Are there any questions for the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Glyn Jones? Are there any questions for Councillor Lainey May Ball? Are there any questions for Councillor Nigel Ball? Sorry.
Sorry, Chair, I've got one for Deputy Mayor, if I may.
Can you, because we've moved on, can you put that in writing, please, to him? Who did I ask for? Councillor Nigel Ball, is that where I was up to? Councillor Rachel Blake, do you want to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ball, yesterday ward councillors got the wonderful news that Rosington Gym would be opening tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and we look forward to joining residents at that very early hour to experience a wonderful new facility for our ward. Councillor Ball, could you please explain fully the next steps for Rosington Wellbeing and Leisure Hub, including the Youth Hub, which should be opening soon, and the funding that has been provided to give us this much needed facility in our ward? Thank you.
Councillor Ball, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it is extremely exciting, obviously, that Rosington Wellbeing and Leisure Hub, which is part of DCLT's cohort, is coming into existence, and as you rightly say, it opens tomorrow at 6 a.m. It's got a wide range of new equipment and dedicated spaces to cater for a variety of fitness needs. The facility has a wide range of cardiovascular equipment, including treadmills, stair climbers and rowing machines, along with resistance machines, free weights and functional kit. The range of equipment is designed to improve health, fitness and well-being for all the community. The gym expansion complements the existing swimming pool and aquatics programme at Rosington Wellbeing and Leisure Hub, offering a full spectrum of fitness options for the community and has been made possible through funding. And just so there's no ambiguity or confusion or anything else, in terms of the funding has come through City of Doncaster Council. Effectively, it's a DCLT initiative, but we need to understand that the funding for that has come through City of Doncaster Council, and it's been brought about because of a collaboration. And the collaboration is made up of, obviously, Mayor Ros Jones and her continued investment in our leisure facilities, but also at the bequest of ward members that saw that was very much needed in Rosington. And working with partners like the Rosington Miners Welfare and CISWEL, which is a coal industry social welfare organisation, it's been pulled together. It's been a partnership approach. But I'll say it again, one more time, the impetus has come from Mayor Ros, and secondly, we need to understand that the funding has come from the City of Doncaster Council. Just to also highlight the fact that obviously in January, moving onwards, that the youth hub in Rosington will be opening as well. As yet, that's entering into its final stages. So that's another fantastic facility for young people to use in Rosington. And again, that funding has come from City of Doncaster Council.
Councillor Ball, always.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to ask a supplementary question, Councillor Blake?
No, just to thank you for funding and the difference it will make.
Councillor Dave Shaw.
Thank you. Councillor Ball, I just wanted to thank you for your work alongside myself and previous councillors in moving to a point where we now have an olive tree and a plaque commemorating members of the public, working class men mainly, socialists who went to fight in Spain against Franco's fascists. I wonder if you would agree with me that given we're seeing a resurgence of fascism across Europe, that this is a timely reminder of the importance of standing strong against fascism and remembering those of our ilk that gave their lives to fight it in Spain many, many years ago.
Would you like to respond, Councillor Ball?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I think it's a timely reminder against the fight of fascism, which we entered into obviously in 1939 to 1945 against Nazism. But I also think in terms of that particular permanent monument down in Anfield Park, it's a timely reminder in terms of normal working class people that effectively joined up to join the International Brigade and fight obviously for the Republicans as such. So I think it is quite timely. It's something that's very much needed to be recognised. And as Councillor Allen said, which I weren't aware of, but I am now, in terms of Thomas Rainsborough, thank you very much for making me aware of that now, and I'll be chasing that as well, because all these elements of local history that we've got, sometimes very much forgotten, we need to remember and celebrate them. So thank you very much for that.
Right, thank you. Councillor Ransom, are you wishing to ask a question? Can I just ask it, are you okay? Because it keeps going on and off, and I know you missed your turn last time. Are you okay with, is your button okay? Yeah. Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think it is anyway. Yeah. This is a question, Councillor Ball, this is a question on communities, okay? But it's many different, all right? Right, okay. 3 years ago, an antisocial behaviour by one person in a rural village, okay? This involved the neighbour who lives close by, the neighbours who live close by and have been disrupted and spend the gathering of evidence, 2 ward councillors, the neighbourhood team, who have been high on that, at twice monthly meetings, Ledger Homes, the police, planning and enforcement. We are now told it is with legal. Doncaster has been given millions by governments to address antisocial behaviour. My question is this: when will Ledger Homes be given powers to manage antisocial behaviour swiftly, or ask legal to act quickly? And how much has been invested in this one complaint with 3 years down the line with no solution?
Do you wish to respond, Councillor Ball?
I will do, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for that. Obviously, I'm not aware of the individual case. What I will say to you, though, is if you make me aware of that via email, I'll certainly chase that up. What I will say again is that one of the issues that obviously we have as a council is that certainly if it's under a tenancy, or it can be something else, a private, but certainly, you know, if it's under a tenancy with said Ledger Homes, we have to go through a certain process as a council through St Ledger Homes in terms of obviously potentially sort of like looking at a breach of tenancy and then going down that process where we're leading towards obviously sort of like potentially eviction right at the end of the road. If this is a private dwelling, that's something entirely different. And all I'm going to say to you is obviously I'm quite happy to have that investigated. If you pass me on the details, I will chase that up for you and let you know where we're at with it.
Would you like to ask a supplementary question, Councillor Ransom?
Sorry, I probably misled you there. It is property that is managed. So in other words, land that is managed by Ledger Homes, like shops and units, this sort of thing.
So just for clarification again, because I think I'm still misunderstanding yet. So is this area of land owned by St Ledger Homes, and the ASB is taking place on the land, not necessarily a property? Okay. Well, again, I'd expect to some extent something much more quicker than 3 years. But if you make me aware of that individual piece, obviously I'll take it up.
Is there any questions to Councillor Joe Blackham? Anybody? No. What? No. What are you saying? Right, is there's nobody? Right. Any questions for Phil Cowell? Councillor Phil? Sorry. You've got, sorry.
Jane Cox and Thomas Noon.
Councillor Jane Cox, thank you.
Councillor Blackham. Enforcement. 12 months ago, I took a photograph of a dog owner, and a car, and I sent it to enforcement. Within a couple of weeks, I came in here, did a statement, took about 5 minutes. They went off and did what they needed to do and find the owner. Now, I find myself sending the photo, the dog, the person, and the car, and all year I've had no responses. What is going on with them?
Do you wish to respond?
Yeah. I apologise that you've had no response because I passed that on to the relevant manager, the head of service. So I will chase that up to ensure you do get a response. I assumed a prosecution had actually taken place, but I'll check that.
Do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
No, thank you.
Thomas Noon, do you want to ask a
Thank
question?
you, Chair. It's been a while since I mentioned potholes and stuff, Joe. Just after an update, you mentioned last time I raised it that as a council we're looking at buying some fancy new machinery, see if we've bought that equipment. The pothole situation seems to be getting worse. I've raised it, I think it's going to be going in front of scrutiny. Just an update, see if we've bought that equipment.
Was a suggestion on my part that we bought that equipment. That equipment has never been purchased. We do have similar equipment in the authority already. It's suggested that we could make better use of that, which we're endeavouring to do. However, what I've seen about this new equipment, as I said last time, it seems to do a superb job. It does lots and lots of work, but we don't simply have the finances to buy this equipment, to staff the equipment and get the materials.
Do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
I think we just need to reevaluate and take a look at ourselves as a council and maybe as a national issue, because what we seem to be doing is paying a lot of money to private companies to fix potholes poorly, when that money could be better invested in better equipment and doing the job right the first time, rather than paying 10 times every single year to get the same potholes repaired every single year. Thank you.
Do you wish to respond to that, Councillor Blackham?
We're constantly reviewing how best to operate the highways element, particularly in relation to potholes. It's a very expensive preoccupation. The situation is getting worse, not better, and we need to find a solution that we currently don't have. And we're investigating it, and we'll see what we can do. But at this point in time, I'd be lying to you if I suggested with the fiscal wherewithal to do what really needs to be done.
Councillor Richard Allen Jones, do you wish to ask a question? Thank you.
Councillor Blackham, thank you very much for all the work your team's done on the Borty Road. in respect to adjacent to the golf club at Bessica. There's still a little bit more to do, and I'm appreciated that you could look at that and your team could look at that in the future, because it looks 100% better than what it ever did. The only other problem is, and I'm talking about street scene, is that, and I visited the Corn Exchange, and it's fantastic inside, marvellous. But outside, as I walk by, I look at a red telephone box that's got no telephone in it, and every window's broken. Every window's broken, and I think, why have we got this here? You know, we've spent 5 million inside, and yet we can't actually spend probably 50 quid getting somebody to uproot it and take it away. Could you investigate that, please?
I most certainly will.
Do you want to come back? Any questions then to Councillor Phil Cole? Any questions to Councillor? I nearly went round there. Sue Farmer. Right, in the absence of Councillor Mark Holbrook, can you put any questions in writing to the Executive Office? Are there any questions for Councillor Jane Nightingale? Are there any questions for Councillor Sarah Smith? Councillor Stapleton?
You're going to be really surprised now, but I'm going to pay the councillor a huge compliment and a big thank you. I've no idea whose decision it was to fund the Alan Carr Easy Way no smoking programme. I put my last cigarette out on the 1st of October, and I've been smoking since I was 14, and I was smoking 60 fags a day. That was costing me over £2,000 a month. So it wasn't it wasn't really just the financials that I decided to stop. I stopped because I needed it for my health, and I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Doncaster Council funding this programme. I would like everybody in this room to promote this to every single resident. It won't work for everybody, but I would guarantee at least probably 60% of people trying it, it will work. And if there's any smokers in here who really do want to stop smoking, get onto it. This Alan Carr Easy Way programme, it really works. Thank you very much. Not a question, but I had to say it, but you can answer it if you want.
Councillor Sarah Smith, do you wish to respond?
Thank you so much, Councillor. It's not adult social care, it's public health, but the great thing about... Exactly. It's really heartening to hear such a great thing. In my healthcare work, you know, it can take hundreds of attempts, really, and to get that support is vital. I don't know whether Councillor Ball can have a comment or not.
Councillor Ball, did you want to add anything? Because he did say it wasn't a question, so...
Thank you, Chair, for that indulgence. I mean, just to say, obviously, what Councillor Stapleton has said, I mean, fantastic news. I'm really, really pleased about it. I know it's not right for everybody, but it's something that certainly it works with some people. I, like you, have been a smoker for a long time, and this week, I've gone a year without smoking, so it certainly works in a lot of cases. So thank you very much for your compliment. And again, what I'd like to say to everybody effectively, if you are still smoking, public health can help show you the way in terms of our smoke-free services, and certainly the Alan Carr way of doing that as well. So thank you.
All right, I'm going to move back on to questions then. So Thomas Noon, Councillor Thomas Noon, have you got a question?
Thank you, Chair. So following the motion earlier that got passed, our adult social care and our stronger communities teams, what conversations are we having, and how are we making sure we're offering the help to those that need to access the services that they're eligible for? And do we think we're in a good position up until before Christmas time, following the removal of the winter fuel allowance and stuff?
Councillor Smith, do you wish to respond? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Noon. It's a great question. Absolutely, our communities team work really hard in being able to know who to support. They're out there. We've invested in everything that's in the motion there, so it's embedded into people's communities. In terms of our social work teams and our social care teams, we've recently, in the last 6 to 8 months, moved them so that they are locally based. So they're no longer, you don't longer call into central and then it gets allocated. It is people that are embedded in their communities, locally in their communities, so they know exactly what kind of resources are around. Those is obviously, as ward councillors as well, we have a duty to make sure that every connection that we make with people, that we are connecting and people know that what resources are there. Sometimes there's so much that it is quite hard to be able to see or make that first step, even in, stopping smoking, for example, like Councillor Season just said. But being able to access, I'm confident that we have things in place. But if there's any ideas or suggestions, absolutely. And again, just like adult social care is great because it kind of goes over loads of different areas like public health, and Doncaster are doing some amazing work as well. Thank you.
Do you wish to ask a supplementary question, Councillor Noon?
Further, thank you.
Right, moving on to elected members. So you may now put questions to the chair of committee. Any questions for the audit committee? Can they be submitted in writing to Councillor Austin White? Any questions for the chair of elections and democratic structures committee? Councillor Emma Muddyman-Rowlands. Any questions for the chair of the health and wellbeing board, Councillor Nigel Ball? Any questions for the chair of OSMC, Councillor Jane Kidd? Item 12, minutes of the joint authorities. The minutes are for information and not for endorsement. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Can I ask the members to move that the minutes be noted? Is that noted? Right. Members, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the business for today's meeting. I now declare the meeting closed.